Did you ever have a moment of evil genius that you actually went through with? Not me, but a friend back in first grade did this. It was our time, so everyone was making shapes out of clay. His creations kept getting smashed by the class bully. This stopped after he embedded a needle inside his clay volcano. It went through the bully's hand. Friend got in trouble. It was worth it, he said. I have one very similar to this. Me and a friend would try to build a hollow pyramid every day from Legos before this one kid came in and smashed it. One day we made the pyramid, probably 30x30 at the bottom, completely full, without missing a single empty space in the middle. When he came in and made a fist and tried to smash it, he nearly broke his hand. Maybe this applies. I worked for a large multinational company that makes bleach. The entire IT department, 150 plus people, were told their jobs had been outsourced to Costa Rica via HP. Oh, and we had to train our replacements. Joy. The particular IT function I was in took me a year to learn, and I'm not stupid. There were 7 of us in this department. They gave us 2 weeks to train our replacements. Yeah, you see where this is going? Majority of the time our replacements were there. They were glued to YouTube. We explained many times to those who would care that these people were not getting it and didn't care they weren't getting it. It was generally taken that we were just trying to keep our jobs. Fast forward to 6 weeks after we had been let go. Each of us gets a semi-panicked pleaful call from someone at the bleach company basically saying help. In the 6 weeks since we left, HP had let the requests back up to over 6 times what we normally had in queue. 6 times the amount. Well, we all got together for lunch and discussed. I had gotten a new job by this point and wanted to stay. I recommended they each call HP back and say sure, I'll help. $100 HR. Wonderfully. They all did. End of the story. 3 people were brought back as contractors for 3 years, making 3-4 times where they were paid as employees. Mission accomplished. They laid off the awesome friendly guy who knew everything at one of my past jobs. I knew a lot of things were going to break without him, and few things gave me as much glee as when they brought him back to consult. He confirmed they were making it worth his time. Oh, mine's evil. My kids were behaving terribly just before Christmas, and before I had time to think, I said, if you don't behave, I'll throw away a Christmas present. The threat worked, but not for long because they called my bluff. So one night, as I was scrubbing the marker off my walls, I wrapped an empty box in Christmas paper and put it under the tree. The next day, they did something naughty and I threw that sucker away. Not only were they good that December, but every Christmas season since. Amazing parent for not actually throwing a present away but still making a strong and terrifying point. When I was 13, in what would probably be called middle school in America, I was being bullied by a thuggish T. Once, I stayed after school for an hour to do a test that I missed, and when I came back to the classroom I saw that the bully's locker was wide open, and his phone was in it. I thought about taking and destroying the phone, but I decided that, instead, I would set a passcode for it. The next morning I saw him repeatedly try to use his phone, and repeatedly be told that his password was incorrect. Eventually he threw it against the wall and broke it out of frustration. He deserved it. When I was in high school during my second hour physics class I routinely had a bottle of Sprite with me. Every day the kid behind me would wait for me to get up and then would grab it and chug half of it as fast as he could. So one day I took it home and filled it back up with white vinegar and brought it with me the next day. As usual I wandered off when I knew he was looking. He grabbed it, started chugging and immediately ran to the sink and threw up. I laughed my butt off for a while. He had to try and explain himself to the teacher and my Sprite went unmolested for the rest of the semester. Quench the thirst, you thieving gobshite. Okay, here we go. The year was 1992. I was in 2nd grade, and my friends and I would always build the sweetest of sandcastles in the sandbox at each recess. As our recess would end, the 4th graders would be released from their lunch and come storming in. Each and every day, one of them would come flying into the sandbox with one purpose, to kick down our beautiful featuring off sand engineering. This happened for weeks. Finally, I became fed up. My army of 2nd graders and I found a pile of cinder blocks down near the woods near our playground. We piled the blocks too high and covered them with sand. Then we took some time to make the structure appear like any one of our standard sand castles. Fourth graders let out. One comes zooming on down, winds up for a huge kick, and breaks his foot. I have, to this day, felt not one semblance of guilt. Sucker got his. In college I was sharing a dorm room with two of my best friends from high school. I love my friends like brothers, but we could be dongs to one another pretty badly. Chris unfortunately crossed a line and unleashed the freaking fury with me when he popped the lock on our bathroom and snapped a Polaroid picture of me while I was on the john one night. He then tossed said photo out the window of our 13th floor dorm room for anybody to find. In the days that followed I learned to pop the lock on our shower door. It was basically a closet-sized room with only a shower, and also set about getting several pitchers of water to nearly freezing temperatures. Just cold enough that ice started to form on the surface. I bided my time. Eventually Chris went to take one of his weekly spa showers where he said he cranked the hot water on full and basically just sat under it for about an hour. I waited a bit for him to hit the hottest water temperature, then I rallied the rest of my dormmates, handed out pitchers of ice water, then quietly popped the lock and opened the door to the shower. In hindsight we probably could have killed him by dumping ice water on him when he was as hot as he was, but at the time hearing him scream like a little girl and fall down in the shower was well worth it. It's pretty hard to kill 20-year-olds. Dump away. I ran track in middle school, and I routinely brought a huge bottle of Gatorade to practice. Someone kept on drinking my Gatorade. I had an idea of who it was, but I never said anything. My mom told me to rub hot peppers on the rim of the bottle, so I did that. After that, no one ever stole my Gatorades again. Your mom is a fiendish woman. I lived in a very large house, former frat house mansion, that was being used as a boarding house. Communal kitchen, bathrooms and entertainment rooms that all 20+ people shared. We were sure which person was eating everyone else's food, but we couldn't prove it. After work on Friday one of the other guys and I made brownies with chocolate slacks. We put them in the refrigerator with a note to not eat them. We took off for the weekend for a hike. We come back on Sunday night to find 1/3 eaten and no toilet paper in the entire house. Everyone thought it was hilarious except the one guy we all suspected of stealing food. The suspected food thief left a passive-aggressive note saying he was also sick of people stealing food, so he upped the ante by leaving rat poison in his food. I've told this story here before, but it's pretty freaking glorious, so I'll say it again. My parents are friends with this couple whose son is an A, but when they'd come over we were expected to play nicely together. Luckily for me this wasn't too often because he was a horrible bully, made worse by the fact that I'm 3 years younger and a girl. I remember once when I was 6 or so we were playing in the garden when he grabbed me by my ankles and held me upside down over the garden waste pile behind our fence, telling me there were spiders in my hair. Now I have never been one for screaming and crying, but that was pretty freaking horrible. Anyway, he was always a dong to me, to everyone, but I never told on him. Partly because I was scared and partly because I was a generally chilled out kid and I didn't want to be the victim. Show no weakness. One evening, he and his parents were over and we were getting on well enough for once, playing Pokémon Red upstairs in my room on our respective Game Boys. Not content with being equals for an hour, he starts boasting about how great his team is compared to mine, how he has way more Pokémon than me, how he's beaten the Elite 400s of times and, get this, he has a Mew. He spins this huge tale about how he got it from his friend who went to Japan specially to visit an old man who was the only person in the world who could get you a Mew officially. While I doubt the veracity of this tale, he did indeed have a Mew. He tells me he got it when his friend did a very difficult trading cheat so they could duplicate the Mew. I'm not sure how, but I eventually managed to convince him to do the cheat with me. We go over and over the rules. The trade begins, and when it is nearly complete he switches his off and I await the trade to complete. But then it happens. A flash of genius. I switch it the frick off, and then when we restart I have his Mew and he has a Caterpie or some level 5 crap. He looks at the Game Boy. He looks at me. I think he might hit me. Suddenly, the gravity of the situation hits him and he launches himself out of my room, screaming and crying and rolling around in the hall. Our parents rush upstairs to see what was going on. She did it wrong. He cries. She took my Mew naturally. None of the grown-ups understand Pokémon, so when they look at me, lip quivering, tears in my eyes, the conclusion is obvious. Oh, stop crying. They say, she's just a wee girl. I'm sure she didn't mean it, still screaming and crying. The little crap yells at them to make me do the trade again, but of course there's no sense in risking both our Pokemons or whatever it is. He got into trouble for causing a scene and shouting at me. I got comforted by everyone, a Mew, and the sweet taste of victory. I was sick of my roommate abusing my Xbox 360. He would play it for hours on end and occasionally leave it on through the night. Then he would get mad at me for shutting it off when I got up in the morning because he hadn't saved his game. I tried reasoning with him and said to take it easy on such a delicate console. First edition Xbox 360. Well, anyway, he is not very tech savvy at all, and I like to think I am. So I went into the router settings and blocked all the ports that the Xbox needs to access the internet. When it happened, he became extremely frustrated and couldn't figure out why the Xbox wasn't working. He couldn't figure it out and none of his friends could either. I told him that he broke the Xbox from playing it too much. I still continue to rub it in that he broke the Xbox. That's so annoying of him. Those things cost a fortune in electricity bills to keep running all the time. It was accidental evil, but back in high school I pee in an empty Bud Ice bottle and set it on the bar in my buddy's basement. A few hours later it was half empty. A friend of mine went to grab it and I stopped him, and he told me to frick off and let him finish his beer. So I went and played football. A warm Bud Ice is probably the worst beer in the world. As someone who has had a warm Bud Ice, I am not surprised he couldn't tell the difference. I was 7 and had a neighbor I couldn't stand. He was the annoying childhood friend, mean to a T. He would come over and tell me how much money his dad made, how my parents' cars sucked, their house was not as nice. By default the kid was always invited to me and my brother's birthday parties. One party we were playing pin the tail on the donkey. He was the blindfolded one. My mom had spun him to the point of dizziness and sent him on his way. Shortly thereafter my dad called my mom into the kitchen. I knew what to do. I opened the basement door and nudged him in that direction and just waited while everyone else watched in horror. The kid had just hit the doorway when my mom walked in and screamed and slammed the door on the kid. In retrospect I could have killed him, so I am glad my plan did not come entirely to fruition. From the way you worded your story, it kinda sounded like she slammed the door on his back, causing him to fall down the stairs. So I began to suspect my wife was cheating on me with her coworker. I confronted both and was told I was being a jealous husband. They were just best friends and I needed to understand that. So, I befriended him, became his workout partner, learned everything I could about him, invited him to my dinner table even while I knew he was stopping my wife. Physical violence was often considered, but neither him nor her were worth me spending a life sentence in prison for. I played dumb. He was a bodybuilder and took steroids. He wasn't incredibly bright and just barely gotten through college. He was working minimal paying jobs while he worked on his true desire. He was applying for the firefighter school in our major metro city. If accepted, it would be a lifetime job for him and a career he had dreamed about since childhood. He talked often during our workout sessions how much it meant to him. Without revealing too much about myself, I have countless M's and fire depth contacts through my career in healthcare. He also knew I was knowledgeable about medicine and drugs. When he started to ask questions about steroids, I made sure to give him just enough info to have him want to ask me more. I then made sure he started emailing me his steroid questions. Ironically, he used an account that even had his full name in the address. After a private investigator confirmed the affair, I moved my plan into action. So when I was financially legally ready to leave my wife, I made sure to get in touch with several of the FD officers that sat on the candidate review board. I provided them with the emails showing one of their candidates was using an illegal substance and had lied about it during the interview process. He was in the second round of interviews at the time and was slated to be part of the incoming class as he had done very well supposedly. Needless to say, he was rejected. I used my contacts in the EMS community to make sure he would never be accepted to a major fire depth within a 200-mile radius. He and my wife took my dream of marriage from me, so I took something from them that had just a profound effect. He's currently working dead-end jobs, probably still wondering why he cannot get accepted to firefighter schools. Respect, man. You are the new Count of Monte Cristo. In high school, approx 1994-1995, computer science teacher assigned a project to my brother and I to write a program for teaching and measuring typing speed. The teacher then used this program to teach typing in all of his classes, as if it belonged to him. So my brother and I hatched a brilliant plan. We would write a new improved version of the software that included far more features that the teacher couldn't possibly pass up, and give this upgrade to the teacher as extra credit. However, the program had a secret purpose. The computer science teacher was responsible for keeping the machines up and running. The new version of the program would, after a short period of time, take over the operating system of the machine. The machine would just boot into a DOS shell that looked just like a DOS prompt. The shell made it appear that besides DOS and the necessary files to boot, the contents of the machine had been erased. It intercepted all commands and passed them to the operating system, and intercepted and parsed all output from the operating system and showed the user only what we wanted him to see. He had to format and reinstall the OS on all of the machines at least once a week for the remainder of the school year. And because it happened at random, there was never any pattern that would suggest that my brother and I had anything to do with it. And the first thing he would reinstall on the machines when he was done reformatting was always the typing program. I don't understand your tech lingo, but I can tell you did something awesome. Kudos. My stepmom was an evil bee. I won't go into detail on all the crap she put my sister and I through except for one. She put 2 little girls on diets because we were fat. I tolerated her bulls because my mom was out on the road working and she desperately needed a place for us to stay. So she put us with my sister's father. One day I snapped. My 12-year-old self had an evil idea. Once a week my stepmom used this $100 conditioning treatment on her hair. She was 56 at the time and desperate to do anything to save her youth. I went to my mom's for the weekend and snatched a bottle of Naya. When I came back for the week, my plan went into fruition. I dumped out half of her fancy conditioner and filled the rest with the Naya. Gave it a good shake and put it back in her cabinet. Then I waited. Same time every week she'd put the conditioning treatment in and soak in the bath for about 30 minutes. Even though the bottle of the stuff only called for about 15 minutes. She got out of the tub and took a shower. She stepped out. Almost all of her fancy permed hair was gone. She never knew it was me. Frick you bee. I'd still beat the crap out of you if I had the chance. TL. DR. Evil bee stepmom pisses off 12-year-old girl. Gets Naya and conditioner. Ends up almost bald. Great story. Compelling. And rich. When I was 11 and my younger brother was 9, I passed to the dark side. We used to regularly prank each other and the rest of our family. Most of the time it was harmless, like removing the light bulb from a closet and then jumping out to scare the person who came inside. We had a pretty good one where we would take all of the chocolate chip cookies out of their container and switch them with oatmeal raisin. Haha. There was one instance though that I crossed the line. I had just seen Home Alone and I had loved the idea of having this really extensive and detailed plans for a trap. I spent a week or two trying to come up with my own crazy plans, most of which were impossible because they involved some sort of catapult. But I did come up with one that I thought was ingenious, and I wanted to use it on my little brother. So while my brother was outside playing, I decided to set my trap. It started with me pouring shampoo and some water in a bucket. Then I took a whole bunch of glue and feathers and poured them all over the shower curtain in the bathroom. I removed the light bulb in the bathroom. Then I took the bucket of shampoo water and dumped it on the floor. My plan was to have my brother come into the bathroom, slip across the floor, and then either fall onto or grab the shower curtain for support. He would then be stuck to the shower curtain and be stuck with a feather cape. It was really stupid and I was an idiot. Well, it worked. He came into the bathroom, slid across the floor, and hit into the shower curtain. Only he didn't stop slipping. He slipped and hit the base of his neck on the edge of the bathtub. I don't remember much immediately after that. I think I blacked out. That was 15 years ago. My brother still can't walk. He's stuck in a wheelchair. He has almost no movement from the neck down. He can barely talk and it is a struggle to get out 1 or 2 words. For me, the worst part is that he can still control his facial expressions pretty well. I apologized to him every day for years. I still do it fairly often now. He always has this look. He smiles and says it's okay. He smiles with his mouth. but not his eyes. I've seen him smile for real, but I can see the resentment in his eyes. I'm the worst person alive. I'm an idiot. TLDR. I paralyzed my little brother while pulling a prank. I hate myself. You were young. I did close to the same thing when I was younger, only he didn't get paralyzed. If you think this is serious enough, talk to a therapist. After my mother divorced my father, she got quite a bit out of it. Dad ended up in a 1-room efficiency apartment in downtown Houston. Well, technically 3 rooms. It had a closet and a bathroom too. The location wasn't bad. It was nearby the arts district of Houston, so weekend visits during the day were nice. But nights could get pretty loud. The apartments were cheap, so they were favored by the local illegal workers, especially when 2 or 4 would stay in the same apartment. After a week of hard work they would sometimes party. Sometimes they shot guns, and Dad would call the cops on them. Sometimes they'd get macho and show everyone how tough they were by punching holes in the hallway drywall. Dad liked the area, and he liked the cheap rent, but he went into a sort of passive-aggressive war with his neighbors. He boarded over his window with a couple of 3/4-inch plywood boards, with quilts over that. If it got really bad he'd put a curtain of heavy quilts before the door. My sister and I didn't see that happen very often. I had a pet corn snake that I left in an terrarium at my dad's place. His neighbors saw me carry it in, and for some reason that got Dad a lot of respect. No one ever tried to break into his apartment, but Dad couldn't stand the holes in the apartment walls. They took a long time for the apartment manager to repair, so Dad would find a board and fill it full of long nails so that the nails went all the way through the board and out the other side. The morning after someone punched a hole in the wall, Dad made a big production of putting this board of nails into the wall, nail side out, and then covering it with a patch. His neighbors watched him do it. Dad told them openly that every time someone put a hole in the wall, he would do this again. A board of nails and a patch. Every now and then the apartment owner would repaint the wall, and the patches would disappear. Dad only had to put in 3 or 4 nail boards. The wall punching stopped. While working at my serving job, a little girl asked for a Sprite and I told her sure thing. On my way back to the kitchen I then remembered that we only had Pepsi products and used Sierra Mist instead of Sprite. I brought her the Sierra Mist without saying anything, because she's just a kid. She won't notice, right? I came back later to check up on them and asked if she'd like a refill. She said yes. I laughed devilishly in my head knowing she had no idea she didn't get a Sprite. The fool. She had no freaking idea. God, I get a rush just thinking about it. You sick mother. Between college and law school, I lived in a 3-bedroom house with 2 sorority girls. As a guy, it was awesome. In December, I told them that I would be taking the LSAT a few weeks in advance and reminded them a few times. The night before the test, they decided to invite a bunch of friends over. A lot of alcohol was consumed and loud times were had. I just wanted some sleep and asked several times to keep it down. By 4 AM I was furious. The party was winding down and they were all talking about having a sleepover in the living room. I heard several of the guys mention that they didn't need a blanket. So, I walked out into the darkened hallway, turned the thermostat all the way down, pulled off the knob, threw the knob into the yard, and went to sleep. When I woke up a few hours later and walked out the door, several of the guys were huddled together in the living room. One of the guys asked me why it was so cold. I just laughed and went to take my test. I was working at Papa John's and had a worthless, useless, good-for-nothing manager that I did not get along with. He was a douche and I think he didn't like me because everyone else loved me. I was a 17-year-old girl. He despised it if pizza boxes were opened on the cutting table in preparation for the pizza to come out of the oven. He wanted us to wait till the pizza was completely done, pulled out, cut, and then put into the box, which took longer. Well, one night we were unusually busy and it was only me, another insider, and a delivery driver. The other insider, person who makes pizzas and answer phones, just like me, and I were going crazy trying to keep up with the 20+ orders. All the while, Douche Bucket was sitting in the office. The office had a one-way mirror that had full view of the oven pizza cutting area. Well, to get the manager's attention, I started pulling down and opening the boxes on the cutting table. I knew he would come out and start yelling, which hopefully would get the owner's attention, who was in the back office. It worked like a charm. He started yelling at me and telling me how I wasn't doing my job and blah, blah blah. Well, being frustrated, extremely busy, and female, I started yelling back. The owner came out from the back after hearing the commotion and made us go into his office and explain the story. After explaining everything about how we were busy, and he wasn't helping and I'd been working there long enough to know how to pull and cut pizzas and blah blah, the owner looked at the manager and said, "If she, me, quits, you, manager, are fired." Then the owner asked me when my 18th B-day was, and when I told him and asked him why, he said because that's the day I'll get promoted to assistant manager. Douche nozzle manager switched stores shortly after that. TLDR. Lazy manager was told he'd be fired if I quit after pizza box opening debacle. There was this B-girl that was always really mean to me as a kid. She was one of my cousin's friends and would constantly pick on me and make fun of me. So one day, when she was being mean, I remembered a story my mom told me of something she had done to her once by a bully. This time though, I would be the righteous bully. I took a dead leaf and told the girl to hide it somewhere on her body, pocket, shirt, whatever. Then I took a dandelion, the puffy ones that you blow and the seeds go everywhere on little tufts of flower, and told her that it would help me find the leaf, kind of like a divining rod. So I'm scanning her body for the leaf when I work my way up to her mouth. I held the dandelion in front of her mouth and said, "Open your mouth." She obliged, with the most smug haha, "You're so stupid, the leaf isn't in my mouth, you F" look on her face. As soon as she did, I jammed that sucker down her throat. Dandelion crap, all over her frickin' gullet. She practically threw up. My aunt, uncle, and cousin were all mad at me, but my mom thought it was frickin' hilarious because she knew how much of a bee this little girl was. When I was a small child, roughly 6 or 7, I somehow ingeniously concocted a plan to freak my babysitter out. She set me down for a nap. When she came to get me, I pretended not to wake up. I pretended not to wake up when she shook me. I pretended not to wake up when she called my dad. I pretended not to wake up when she called 911. I pretended not to wake up when she dumped me in a tub full of freezing water. I winked at my younger sister from the freezing tub when the babysitter ran from the room to talk more with 911. I pretended not to wake up when she carried me naked downstairs. Finally, I gave it up when I realized the living room is filled with EMTs, police officers, and firefighters. I put baby oil on the floor of my shower so next time my little brother took a shower he would slip or something. I know, not the brightest of ideas. I was young and did not think the possible consequences of my actions through. Luckily nothing happened to him, but next time I took a shower I busted my butt. Kind of like one of Wild Coyote's crazy plans to catch the Roadrunner. Holy frick, that was a dangerous prank. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.